First off, as I always say, you guys know I always say this. Shout out to all you truck drivers out there in the United States of America. Okay? You don't get credit for what you do. I appreciate what you do. You're out there, you're running those loads, hooking up trailers, dropping trailers, you're dodging traffic. Nobody gives you credit or respect. Nobody thinks what you do is hard. You work long days. You really work. For the OTR drivers, you know you're really working 24 hours a day. You don't get paid for that, but you really work 24 hours a day. I appreciate what you do. Keep doing it. Keep doing a good job. We all appreciate it, okay? Maybe people won't voice it, but I voice it. Thank you for what you do and continuing to work. It's a very selfless job where you spend a lot of time of your life dedicated to it. And you miss a lot of time with family and friends and holidays. Thank you so much. I always start off with that. So I like to say, okay? Tonight we're going to talk about faith, though, all right? I'm going to read a short passage of the Bible. Okay, we're going to read a short passage of the Bible. I'm going to talk to you guys about having faith. I mean, you got to have faith. It is what it is. You got to have faith, all right? In the Bible, this is from the Old Testament, all right? It's the Old Testament. It's not long. I'm not going to read the Bible crazy long, all right? Quick verse here. It's from Exodus 15:22, okay? 22 and 18 through 27. I may not get that far, though. I'm definitely going to read chapter 15, verse 22 of Exodus, okay? This is when Moses had led the Israelites out of Egypt from enslavement, all right? Check this out. Then Moses led Israel forward from the Red Sea, and they marched out to the wilderness of Shur. After traveling for 3 days through the wilderness without finding water, it's going to be pretty tough, they arrived at Marah, where they could not drink its water because it was too bitter. Hence this place was called Marah. As the people grumbled against Moses, saying, "What are we to drink?" He cried out to the Lord, who pointed out to him a piece of wood. When he threw it into the water became fresh. It was here that God, in making statutes and ordinances for them, put them to the test. He said, if you listen closely to the voice of the Lord, your God, and do what is right in his eyes, if you heed his commandments and keep all his statutes, I will not afflict you with any of the diseases with which I afflicted the Egyptians, for I, the Lord, am your healer. Now, I read that because you got to have faith. So at this point in the Bible, God has led the Israelites out of enslavement in Egypt. And they're wandering around for 3 days and they're already complaining. Come on, already complaining. You got to have faith. You got to believe. If you're going to follow the righteous path in life, then you have to say, God, take the wheel. Lord, take the wheel. You know what I'm saying? But you got to let him drive it now. You got to let him drive that mofo. You know what I mean? You can't be 3 days in. I don't know no more. No, that's what faith is. You got to stick with it, okay? And that means, because it says in here, it says, put them to the test. So what's going to happen is, if you're a person who walks by faith, okay, and you believe whatever's happening in your life is all part of God's plan, maybe you don't understand it, like, I don't know why this is happening to me right now. I don't know. But you got to have faith that it's all part of God's plan. If you believe, and that's what it's all about. Sometimes in life, we get worried and we give up real soon. If you go get a steak from Bobby Flay's Steakhouse, you trust and believe that Bobby Flay and his staff is going to get you that steak. You believe in that? You believe when you put that gas in your car, you charge it up with your electric cable, whatever car you might drive. You believe you put that charge in that car? Or if you put gas in that car's going to go, right? You believe that? You believe that? So you got to believe whatever's happening in your life, God's working it out. 3 days started grumbling. Then delivered you from enslavement, and you 3 days out to the wilderness, you already complaining. Can't do it. Everything that happens in your life happens for a reason. Hold on. He said, if you listen closely to the voice of the Lord, your God, and do what's right in his eyes, if you heed his commandments and keep all his statutes, I will not afflict you with any of the diseases with which I have afflicted the Egyptians. Now, we can look at this metaphorically, right? So if you're a righteous person and you see or you feel in your heart and your soul that there's just some things going on in the world today that you're just like, you know what? Maybe I don't read the Bible, maybe I'm not into God, but I just, some of this stuff that I see going on today, you just feel it in your heart. You're so like, man, it just ain't right. Just ain't right. You got to have faith that there's a bigger message here, a bigger theme here, something that God is trying to do in the world and in our lives and make this a better place. You got to believe it. And it really flows into everything because, you have to believe, you have to believe in yourself. You got to have that faith. The other day I was getting down and out and I was discouraged about, I started thinking about, why did this happen? Why did I make these mistakes? And it's like, no, that's not what it is. Things that happen in your life are a learning experience. And sometimes we don't get the lesson on the first try. That's why you hear a lot of successful people say, you need to fail more. Failure is good, right? You need to do it. And I agree. For example, if I only make one YouTube video a month, right? I'm not going to find out, are my videos reaching the right audience? Am I saying the right things? I'm not going to find out right away. How you doing there, Laurencia? Hey. But if I make a video once a day, twice a day, you're going to fail a lot of times, but you're going to find out what works and what doesn't work, and you're going to make those adjustments. So the sooner you learn the lesson, the sooner you have faith, even though, like, man, I'm doing this, not working out, not what I thought was going to happen. Just got to have faith. Trust and believe that God has a plan, and the things that you're going through are part of that plan, preparing you for the next level, a lesson that you need to learn. That's what it is. And the more faith you get, the happier you get. You start to believe, you know what? I know what this is. This is a test right here. It's a tough moment, but I have faith. I'm going to keep believing. I'm going to keep going, living my best life, doing the best that I can, and trust that this is all happening to me for a reason, and God's going to resolve it one day, and I'm going to say, oh, and everything's going to turn out fine, as it always does. Why? You're still here. You're still alive, right? God's got your back. God's got your back, bro. All right? You got to believe it. You got to believe that God has your back, even in the worst times and the darkest times, even when it seems like the whole world is going against you. Everything's going wrong. Out in the wilderness for 3 days, no water. I would be worried. And so a lot of us, we start to complain. We forget. Oh, wait, didn't you just lead us out of enslavement? But we 3 days without water, you're already complaining. You trusted in God to get you up out of Egypt, but now you're out in the wilderness and you don't trust him to get you some water? That's what faith is. And it's tough. It's hard to have faith in today's world, in the modern world. And we want to control a lot of things. We want to be the person who can make things happen when we want. And that's probably one of my bigger problems. And I know it probably plays a lot of people too. A lot of us want things now. We want things right now. I don't want to wait 3 days for water. I want water now, I don't want to wait for the perfect relationship. I want it now. I don't want to wait for the perfect career, the perfect job. I want it now. But now is not when you're ready. That's what God's doing. That's why things are delayed. You ain't ready. He's trying to test you. They ended up spending 40 years out in the wilderness before they made it to the promised land. So God was checking on, hey man, y'all can go 3 days without water or no? Because I'm gonna get you where you need to go, but we might be out here for a while. And that's where you have to have patience and trust. It's tough. I know some people don't want to do it. I don't want to be patient. I don't want to have trust. I want it now. NOW right now. You know? And in my experience, I'm starting to realize that all the time that I spent grumbling and groveling and worrying and complaining was actually the time that I was getting forged and shaped for the next challenge, for where God's trying to take me and hopefully trying to take you too. And that's why it's important to have faith. If you're going to trust God, you got to trust Him all the way. That's what it is. You can't half-step it. You know, when things get a little tough, you can't be like, well, I was cool with it. We was enslaved in Egypt. Now we up out of there. And now I'm complaining because we ain't got water for 3 days. Can't be like that. You got to stay positive, and you got to have faith, and you have to trust that God is working something out for you. And you have to trust that better days are coming. The best days lie ahead. And I know it's tough to do. I know it's really, really tough to do. I struggle with it sometimes too, but reading the Bible actually does help. They're examples, and a lot of people just take these verses and just use it metaphorically and apply it to the real world today. And you can do the same. But a lot of these things resonate as true. When I read the verses, it's kind of funny. Like, I used to go to church when I was a kid. I used to play drums too. I played drums in church, but a lot of the things you would see people in church, jumping up and hollering and shouting about, you'd be like, okay, man, I'm just going to keep playing the drums. But as you get a little experience, you get a little mileage in life, you go back and you read some of these verses and them joints be popping out at you. They make a lot of sense now. Once you get some mileage on your life, it make a lot of sense. And you'll be reading it and you'll say, yep, that is definitely screaming at me. So I encourage all of you who watch this video, and hopefully you liked and subscribed and watch my content some more. I encourage all you to analyze where you are in your life and say, this may just be a test of my faith. Like God's already got it over here. He's gonna give it to you. He's preparing. He's getting it right for you. You know what I mean? He's gonna, just like you went to Bobby Flay Steakhouse. Bobby Flay gonna bring you that steak. It's gonna be popping, right? Well, trust and believe God gonna do the same thing for you. And if you do, you'll have a lot more joyous and happy life. And I'm starting to feel the joy come back into my life. I used to be every day under my breath. A lot of people who know me know, always face all sad, like there ain't no hope in the world, like ain't nothing gonna change, and that's the wrong attitude. You gotta believe that it's coming. Whatever you ask for, whatever you need is coming, And if you do that, you will reap the reward, and you'll have a lot happier life. And people will notice that too. You'll attract people too. People will be attracted to you now because they'll see your positivity. You're an optimist. You believe in the universe and its power. You believe in God's power. It'll help you out tremendously. It really will. So the message for today, as always, is trust in God and have faith. Find a passage of the Bible that you like. Maybe comment it down below. Maybe I'll read it on the next one. And I always appreciate everyone who watches the lives and supports and watches my channel. I thank you guys so much. I'm trying to turn my life around right now, make some positive changes in my life. I really am. And I thank all of you who watch. Continue to watch. I'm going to see y'all soon. Have a wonderful night. Keep faith. All right?